Guys, weekend once again, April 19th, 2019. Another shit ton of movies, 1 week before Endgame. So let's get to it. Curse of La Llorona. So you look at the trailer and you're like, it's like some sort of Mexican horror folk tale about this ghost called La Llorona who's out to kidnap some kids. Not the most aspired concept, but it is produced by James Wan, so there is going to be a level of quality to this. But I don't see anything that on the concept level makes me want to watch this movie. Even with something like The Conjuring, which is, standard horror affair, but at least that was based on real events or supposedly real events, right? So that there was that. I'm sure The Curse of La Llorona is going to have some really good scares. James Wan being the producer, he's not going to produce shit. So I'm sure in terms of the fear factor, the scare factor, it'll be fine. It'll be pretty good probably. But in terms of the concept and in terms of the overall package and story, I don't think it's going to be very interesting, unfortunately, because I do like these horror movies and James Wan does them well. But again, he's only producing, so he can only do so much. Drunk Parents. So you look at the cast, right? Selma Hayek and Alec Baldwin playing the lead. They are based on the trailer. Basically, they send their kid to college, and then soon afterwards go broke because of their drinking habits, and they go to extreme lengths to pay back debt and to sustain their extravagant lifestyle, and shit hits the fan and hilarity ensues. And from the trailer, it seems they get involved in all sorts of crazy stuff. I mean, do I really want to watch Selma Hayek and Alec Baldwin just make asses of themselves? I guess that's like a thing, right? I don't know, guys. I think this movie's fine, but this movie really reminds me of, like, for some reason, like Yes Men, like Yes Man, that Jim Carrey movie. Like, concept is okay, and I think execution will be fine. Cast other than Selma Hayek and Alec Baldwin, you have decent people to support them. Overall, I think this movie is gonna be fun, probably good for a couple laughs, but overall package, I just don't see the dramatic engine. I don't see if this movie is talking about this couple's relationship. Is that what it's about? I don't really understand how they keep on getting into worse and worse trouble. Is it just because they're drunk and they want to drink all the time? I don't think this movie has the dramatic legs to sustain its 97-minute runtime. Fast Color. This is about a girl who has supernatural powers and she's on the run from people who want to capture her and extract or experiment on her for her powers. From the trailer, it has a very Children of Men vibe to it, which is pretty cool. I like that movie a lot. I think that's a really nice aesthetic and style of movie. In terms of the story, I think it's okay. I don't actually know what this girl's superpower is, like the main character's superpower. She's a young girl and her powers seem to be telekinesis to mind reading to clairvoyance. I don't actually know the antagonist either. I don't know if it's a government or a private entity or a single person. I think this movie, based on the trailer, goes into more like her relationship with her family, whom she ran away from when she first discovered she had powers, and now she has to come back to hide there because she's on the run. So I think the main drama is between the girl and her family, and not really about her superpowers, which is fine. I think it's okay, but because of that, you're watching a family drama, but with like a superpower twist to it. Is that enough to go watch this in theaters? Probably not, but it is only 100 minutes, so that's a nice runtime for something like this. But I don't think this is a movie theater watch for sure. Grass. Korean art movie. So apparently this dude Hong Sang So Soo likes to do movies about real life stuff, but they're not real life and all in black and white. And this is the same thing. Basically, the trailer is shows this woman, Kim Min Hee, who's a pretty big star actually in Korea. Just shows her running up and down a flight of stairs for 2.5 minutes. That's the trailer. Based on the small blurb here, it seems like it's about a woman who writes at a cafe and observes people around her but doesn't like to interact with other people. I'm gonna say this movie is ridiculous and probably not worth watching in theaters. I mean, yeah, I mean, why would you watch this in theaters? I mean, if you're interested in art movies, you don't have to watch them in theaters unless you're going there to support the movie, right? So unless you're doing that. But again, there is a following for Ho Sang-soo's films. I know that he's actually quite popular in the art circuit. So if you are into those movies, you can watch it. If you're not, then you can not watch it or wait for it to come out on video, because I think the experience will be the same when you watch it at home. Hail Satan! This movie looks crazy, man. So it's a documentary about the satanic church in, I don't know where it's set, maybe all over the states, and the satanic church trying to erect a satanic statue in the middle of the city. I think that's what the documentary is about, and it goes into America's lack of freedom when it comes to religion. It's really a satire, not satire. It's really a commentary on how American government or American society controls people's freedom of religion. And these people who are members of the Satanic Church are out to free America from the coercion of forced religion. I think it looks pretty funny. The clips that were in the trailer look hilarious. I think the topic is very relevant. I don't know if you're watching it in theater, so again, this is not really a theater movie. Documentaries rarely are theater movies. Little Woods. Basically, this is the movie that I'm the most excited for this week. Tessa Thompson and Lily James smuggled drugs to pay for stuff, to pay for more drugs for their family or their mom, I think. This movie looks pretty cool. Like, the dynamic between Lily James and Tessa Thompson looks great. The plot seems to make sense. The action and concept is clear. Antagonists are clear. So I would have to say that this movie is probably the safest bet to watch in theaters, and you can probably have a good time. I don't know how it sustains its an hour 45 runtime. It's a bit long. It's maybe, based on what I saw in the trailer, it's 10 minutes too long. So that makes me question around the midpoint of the movie how it turned. They have to sell illegal pharmaceutical drugs to pay for their medical bills, or pay for their mom's medical bills. And but that can't sustain the whole movie, right? So something needs to happen in the middle, and I didn't see any clues of what happens. So I'm a bit concerned about the second half of this movie. I think it might fall apart a little bit. But overall, I think this movie has what I would consider worthy elements to watch in theaters. The Man Who Killed Don Quixote. When your marketing plan is to tell people that it took 25 years to make this movie because it was so effing hard and it kept on going over schedule and people kept on getting fired and wanting to kill this movie. On one hand, you're like, oh, I'm curious as to what this movie actually is. On the other hand, you're like, this can't be good, right? Like, there's no way this movie can be good. And it's by Terry Gilliam, so you know that it's going to be a crazy mess of, like, crap that doesn't make any sense. Then you look at this brief description. Toby, a disillusioned film director, becomes pulled into a world of time-jumping fantasy when a Spanish cobbler believes him to be Sancho Panza. He gradually becomes unable to tell dreams from reality. So this is classic Terry Gilliam, dreams versus reality, surrealism, all that stuff in there. Trailer looks absolutely bonkers. I like Adam Driver a lot, so there's that, but this movie just looks like a trip. And not in the good way. But having said that, something like this with the visual flair of Terry Gilliam does warrant watching in theaters. Like the experience watching something like this in theaters will be very different than watching this at home without the big screen, right? And so I feel like if you're really into the visual aspects of movie making, or if you really enjoy the visual aspect of movies, this movie might be for you. Rafiki. So it's about lesbian love in Kenya, which I think same sex marriage slash relationships are illegal. So the concept is forbidden love, and the background is in Kenya. I think this movie is very relevant for the people living in Kenya, and or people who are being oppressed in terms of who they can and cannot be with. Does it do enough to differentiate itself from all the other same-sex movies or movies about same-sex relationships? I don't think it does. I think, despite it being in a new location or a location that I haven't seen before, Kenya, I just don't think the concept has anything more to add to the already, mass volumes of same sex relationship movies. These two women and their relationship be any more interesting than other relationships. They seem to be two normal girls, right? Like, I don't see how the background or the personalities of these two characters makes this concept more interesting. Like, even something like Moonlight is interesting because of the background of the characters, right? So these two characters, other than being from Kenya, they're just normal girls, and I just don't see, and I just don't think that's enough to warrant me watching something like this in theaters. Red Joan. So I love Judi Dench, and she's here playing Joan Stanley, who apparently is the longest serving KGB spy working in Britain, where I think she is British, but she is a KGB spy. And this story talks about how she became a KGB spy through being interrogated by what I would assume to be MI6. It's pretty cool. It talks about how she was a physics student and how she helped create the research for the atomic bomb, and how she feels like the only way to sustain peace is to give the bomb to the Russians. Yeah, so I think it's a pretty interesting concept. I think the structure is really interesting, with her story being told in flashbacks. I think there are opportunities for false narration or unreliable narration, which is pretty cool. Like, I like watching those movies, that kind of structure, like where you don't know if Judi Dench is telling the truth or if she's lying. These flashback structured stories have that possibility, and when they do it well, it's actually very fascinating. But I don't know if that's the way this one is. I think this one's just a straight up telling of Judi Dench telling us her story of being Joan Stanley and helping the communists and stuff. So, but I could be wrong. I mean, Judi Dench, just her alone would make me want to watch this movie. In terms of the overall package, I wouldn't say this movie warrants watching in theaters, but then Judi Dench carries such bravado that, her on the big screen is such a joy to watch, and you're not going to get much more opportunities, right, with, her age and stuff. So I would say this movie is a safe watch. I will watch it in theaters for sure because I just like Judi Dench so much. The last one of this weekend is Under the Silver Lake, starring Andrew Garfield. So this one is like La La Land, but the conspiracy theory version. So it's about this dude, Sam, who who lives in this apartment in Silver Lake, I'm assuming, and then he falls in love, where he gets to know this girl one night, and the next day the girl disappears, her apartment is empty, and he wants to go find her, and he thinks that she's involved in a secret society that secretly controls Los Angeles and have their fingers everywhere. And he goes down the proverbial rabbit hole to try to find this girl, and obviously gets entangled into a mess of psychedelic trips. I don't have to explain to me. This movie looks like Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, but set in Los Angeles and about conspiracy theories, which could be interesting. Like, if you live in LA long enough, you go crazy, right? Isn't that what people say? When I lived in LA, I didn't live far from Silver Lake, but I never actually lived there, so I don't know the nuances of what it means to live in Silver Lake. But yeah, I mean, living in LA, just anywhere, is like, it makes you go mad eventually, I feel. What I'm worried about is that this movie is 2 hours and 19 minutes. That's way too long. That's like 30 minutes too long for something like this. So I think this movie doesn't really have a story. Because watching the trailer, I don't understand why Andrew Garfield's character Sam really needs to find Wendy. Like, I don't understand what the stakes are for Sam, right? So I wouldn't say this movie has enough of a dramatic engine to sustain itself for over 2 hours. And the conspiracy part of it, I think you would actually, it's a bit inside baseball, so you might have to understand more of being in LA to really appreciate the jabs and the jokes that it's saying, probably. But visually, this movie is very interesting, and the actors are big screen actors, right? So I feel like it's a safe bet to watch in theaters. It's about 30 minutes too long, so I feel like the last 30 minutes are going to be torture watching this movie. So all right, guys, so the pick for the weekend of April 19th 2019 is Little Woods, starring Tessa Thompson and Lily James. I feel this movie is not gonna be that great, but I feel like if you're gonna watch one thing in theaters, this is the safest bet. It's an hour 45 minutes, short enough for the concept. I feel like the story is clear, the antagonists are clear, the challenge and the motives are clear. So I think this movie is, in terms of overall quality on story, it's probably the best option. I think visually it's probably lacking in creativity and originality. I don't know if it dives deep into the world of pharmaceutical drugs or the underground trading of pharmaceutical drugs. I don't think it does that at all. What I'm worried about is Lily James and Tessa Thompson's relationships. They say like it's about two sisters. I don't know if they are actual sisters or if they're just adopted sisters or if they're like, sisters. I don't know. So I don't see much about the drama between these two and what their deal is. I feel like just based on the plot, it should be okay. It should be pretty safe. But the relationship between Lily James and Tessa Thompson is really lacking in the trailer, which makes me question if this movie has a romantic or an emotional through line. And if it doesn't, then what am I watching? But I'm willing to give it the benefit of the doubt. I think it is the safest bet to watch in theaters this weekend. All right, guys, let me know what you think. Are you gonna watch any of these movies before Endgame, or are you just gonna stay home, Game of Thrones it up, and wait for Endgame? Let me know. Comments below, and I'll see you next week.